The Edmonton Oilers are on the brink after a tough loss Saturday at home against the Florida Panthers. What will it take to get them back in the series? Nick Zararis of Locked On Oilers joins us to discuss that and a lot more next on today's Locked On NHL podcast.
You're Locked On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Gil Martin here. Welcome, everybody, to the Monday episode of the Locked On NHL podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Want to thank everyone who makes Locked On NHL your first listen every day. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts so you never miss an episode. It is great to welcome back to the show Nick Zararis of Locked On Oilers. And Nick, a tough loss in Game 5 for the Oilers at home. I got to ask you this, a bit of a slow start in that game. Why do you think that the Oilers just did not seem ready at the drop of the puck?
That's been a recurring theme all year. In the regular season, they had a negative goal differential in the first period. They've been a slow starting team. And some of that, I think, is just stylistically that their preference is to create off of the counter, absorb pressure in the defensive zone, and then spring guys going back the other way. And that generally requires the other team to get going a little bit. And obviously, and I made the joke the other day, it's okay if they want to score first at some point in this series. It would go a long way. And it's been a real challenge. And that was really why it started to go downhill, kind of like the snowball effect on them last night, was Florida gets out to a 2-0 lead. You have 3 power plays you don't convert. And the real kick in the chin there is, this is the first game your penalty kill did a good job. You know, you could have absolutely swung this game. If you go 1 for 3 on those power plays and it's 2-1, or it's 2-2, and you're in the game, even if you're not playing great. And the Oilers got destroyed on the expected goals and the high danger chances last night. But if you're hanging around and you only need 1 flash play from McDavid, from Draisaitl to kind of steal it, that's a very different conversation. You know, if that Perry chance goes in, if that McDavid crossbar or post goes in, and that, yes, this is a lot of equivocating and moral victorying in a bad loss, but I don't feel the Oilers played as bad as the score reflected on them. And it's really important that you keep that in mind as far as going into a Game 6, which is going to be as difficult as can be. I mean, this Florida team, they sneak up on you in a heartbeat. They hung 3 on the Oilers in a blink. You know, McDavid finally scores. They're on the board. The crowd has a little bit of energy. And Florida comes down and scores 2 minutes later. It is so hard to get anything going consistently. And it creates these snowball downhill effects where Florida they start to choke the life out of you.
What does Florida do so well that limits the offensive chances of the opposition, the Oilers in particular?
They do a great job of diverting guys wide. When the Oilers enter the zone with speed, especially McDavid, they do a great job of corralling him to the outside. He's going to bring 2 guys with him. And when Connor gets frustrated, he'll start to just fire pucks to the middle in hopes that someone will be there. It'll hit a body on the way in. And to some effect, that has worked at points in these playoffs where Perry at the net front has been in and around a lot of those plays. I remember now talking about it. Perry had that one saucer pass where McDavid missed it by half a second. And if that pass gets over, and that's the biggest thing, the Panthers have taken away that center lane and the high danger chances, which is where Edmonton makes their money, those great players making those really special plays. They haven't really been there, and it's forced the Oilers to work extremely difficultly hard to get offense. You know, it's so hard where you gain the offensive zone, 1 pass, 2 pass, 3 pass, 4 pass to get 1 chance. If you need to string together 6 or 7 passes to get 1 decent look, and you need to do that to score 4 goals to come back and win the game, the math really starts to work against you because Florida's going to let you pass the puck around the perimeter if you gain the offensive zone. That's fine with them. They're good with that. And then they're going to go off the counter because they're so fast, because they have such a deep forward group where guys like Marchand, they're playing specialized third line minutes in air quotes there because that line's been the best line in the playoffs. But when you have that, and no disrespect to guys like Adam Henrique who are trying their best here, but Marchand's still an elite player and the Oilers don't have that degree of depth. So the margin of error, it's a lot smaller for the Oilers if they want to win these games.
You talked about McDavid being a little frustrated. He got a pretty goal off a nice pass by Bouchard on Saturday. Is that possibly something that could jumpstart him a little bit, because the Oilers definitely need more offense from him?
That's the way I'm going to frame this to myself, that the best player in the world has 2 days to think about this. They got to get on that 8-hour flight and think about how badly they played and how badly they lost. And I think for a guy like that, they don't need any more motivation. I know that this is kind of killing him slowly, that they're in this spot again and they need to win 2 straight against one of the best teams we've ever seen in the Cap era. But I can't hurt. Anything you can use in that toolbox to just coax a little bit more out of you. You know, everybody after they won game 4 talked about the speech Perry gave after the first period. We've been here, we can do this. And being that it was Perry who doesn't speak up a lot, the guys kind of took that to heart and felt that was meaningful. So it can't hurt. Any tool in the toolbox, and God knows they need it, considering we don't know who the goalie is going to be for game 6, which is probably the single biggest question going into game 6. And it's never great. You know, that's the old Parcells quote. If you have 2 quarterbacks, you don't have one. The Oilers have 2 goalies and they don't have one.
Who would you start and why?
I would flip a coin. There is no feel at all. Pickard probably, just because the team plays better in front of him, but you saw the difference. You see the talent gap here when you saw the game last night. Bobrovsky didn't have to do a ton of work, like 20 shots the Oilers had, something along those lines. The Panthers had like 20, 25, and they scored 5. The margin of error is so small. And when Bob doesn't need to be incredible, he just needs to be okay. He's very capable of that. Is Skinner capable of just being okay? We haven't really seen that in this series. In the last series, yeah, against Dallas, against Vegas, both had really nice stretches, but Florida, they're such a dangerous team and they make the Oilers so uncomfortable in a variety of ways. There's no great feel here. I trust Chris Knobloch will make the right decision because he has pushed the goalie buttons perfectly for 2 straight postseasons, but it's hard to feel confidence in either guy right now.
Besides the goalies, who else needs to step up?
Anybody other than McDavid or Draisaitl. And that's the most cop-out answer imaginable because both of them are playing very well. They're both close to 10 points in this series. Draisaitl's got a couple tucks. McDavid got his first goal of the series last night. But anything, I would emphasize probably Evan Bouchard, just because they need one of these defensemen to help them get a little more game control. And the Oilers don't mind playing defense, and the Oilers will tell you themselves, we are good at defense, and they get a little slighted when people talk about, you guys had such a good defensive effort, like they're not good at hockey. And they desperately need their defense to step up in this game 6, because just gaming it out in your head, you got to get to 3 or 4 goals if you're going to win this game, like baseline. And if Florida's going to score 4 or 5, how do you get to 4 or 5? And some of that is going to be, we need to play better defense. We need to steal a goal. We need a shorthanded goal. We need to go 2 for 5 on the power play in this game. Because ultimately, for me, that was the differentiation last night. Neither team scored on special teams. The Panthers pulled away at 5-on-5. Very different hockey game if the Oilers can just get 1 and they get a little bit of energy, because we've seen that where all it takes is 1 and they get going downhill a little bit and they start to get that energy. I mean, even the McDavid goal last night, okay, 8 minutes to go, down 3. It's not implausible that they can get it to 4-2, and then you start believing, they did it in game 4. It's not impossible, but they do need to get that first one to start building a little bit of energy.
Going to be on the road game 6. How important are the first 5-10 minutes of this game?
I mean, you saw it in game 3. It was 3-0 after the first period. Game 4, excuse me. It was 3-0 after the first period, and they had to meticulously work their way back 1 goal at a time. And it took the better part of 2 periods to get all the way back into that game. The biggest thing is surviving those first 5-10 minutes, because Florida is the fastest team I can recall seeing in the salary cap era. They are the most talented team, I venture to say, and just keeping the game on the tracks. I always go back to the worst example of this was that Vikings-Eagles NFC title game where the first drive, Keenum throws the pick 6 and the game's over. You are on the road and you give up the pick 6, and then you get the ball back and, oh no, the crowd is into it. It's a big spot, and you know your guy, your goalie, doesn't have that steal the game in him the way Case Keenum didn't, and then the Eagles get going downhill, and it's the same thing here. The Panthers get that first one. Okay, everybody's looking around a little frazzled, and then the second one comes, and then like that, it's 3-0, and you need to work so hard just to get one, let alone three, against a team that's this good.
Going to be a challenge. Let's see if the Oilers are equal to it. Nick, why don't you tell our viewers and our listeners where they could find the podcast and where they could find you on social media?
Locked On Oilers is available on all the major podcasting platforms and over on YouTube. You can follow my personal stuff. Twitter and Instagram are Nick Zararis, Nick Zararis, and then over on TikTok, it's Nick Zararis Sports.
All right, Nick, thanks so much.
Thanks, Gil.
Today's episode is brought to you by your friends at Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track, but that's where Monarch Money comes in. It's your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You could track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. When I started using Monarch, I realized just how much I was spending on food delivery. Now I budget smarter and save more. I love eating out, but, not at the expense of my financial well-being. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you could use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com. Code LOCKEDONNHL for half off your first year.